Welcome to Jimmy Snow Has a Podcast for October 26, 2024. This is a special episode where we are asking the question, not just of ourselves, but of a lot. I have a lot of people that are going to answer the question, is Donald Trump about to win this election? But joining me today to help me in and out of my states of existential dread, fear, crisis, because what we're going to do is time our crises alternatively. All crisis, shield crisis, all crisis, shield crisis. It's Eve Was Framed. Hi, Eve.
Hello. I don't know how much help I'm going to be. I'm kind of living in a perpetual state of crisis at this point.
I'm feeling that very, very much. There's also good for those people who are watching on video. I'm still getting over some medical stuff. That's why we haven't had a little podcast in a while. And one of the things I like to do is stand up when I'm not feeling well. But then when I get to feeling well, I'm like, this is annoying. Why am I sitting? So you're just going to keep seeing me go up and down in this episode, up and down in literal stature and posture, and then up and down in existential crisis. We have done a wonderful thing. We have put out feelers, calls. We're going to pretend it's...
I'm trying to act normal about the fact that you're just slowly fading down.
Oh my goodness, that was an accident. And then I got super bright. We have put out calls to many people today, and you're going to hear those calls. Different people: Seth Andrews, Matt Dillahunty, Arden Hart, Erika from Gutsick Gibbon, SoFrantic, Alyssa Ljub, our bestie in common that we have here.
My bestie. And we pretend that you're allowed to be one too. You found her for me, and I've claimed her. So. And then
I destroyed it. I destroyed my own relationship with both of you, and that's the horrible. We've got Owen Morgan. We just have a ton of these things to go through, and the person who I think I want you to hear the most from would be Andrew Seidel.
Oh, because I was hoping you were going to talk to him.
He just the dude's doing the work in a way that the rest of us aren't. And so the question today is it's even just hard to keep saying out loud, but is Donald Trump about to pull this off? Is Donald Trump about to win the election? And I put on Threads the other day. Now, is this a way of also mentioning that I have a Threads Jimmy A. Snow that you should go and support? Yeah, of course it is. But on Threads, I'd mentioned the other day. I'm trying to find it. I'm kind of like vamping right now. Hey, what was that other thing you wanted to say real quick?
Oh, yeah, that thing I wanted to say about the idea.
Actually, forget about that because I want to get this thread in here and I'm ready. And now you're making me wait. If you knew Donald Trump, actually, I just said, if you knew Trump was going to win in 2 weeks, what would you do differently now? Now go do that. I don't know whether or not he's going to win or not in 2 weeks, but I got to tell you, everything looks like and feels like shit because Democrats have to rely on a large voter, a lot of people showing up to win. And right now, there's a lot of information that is showing that even in early votes, Republicans are showing up strong. Now, does that mean for sure he's going to win? Absolutely not. By the way, while Republicans are showing out strong in early voting, so are women. And are we sure that the Republican women are actually voting for Trump when you have something like abortion access on? I guess, Eve, what do you think before we start playing these calls we have from all of these people who wonderfully responded for us?
Yeah, I mean, I was feeling really excited when I went to vote the other day because I saw the lines were super long. I was hearing, voter turnout was record high in Georgia and I think Tennessee. And that was encouraging because typically when you hear that, it's good for the Democrats. But now, the last 2 days, especially with the news coming in, I'm feeling extremely hopeless, extremely frustrated. I can't say that I'm sure Trump is going to win, but I can definitely say I'm not sure that Kamala is going to. That was like a really lazy or weird abstract way of saying who the fuck knows, but it's way too close for me to feel anything other than anxiety right now about the election.
Okay. I hear you. I feel you. I care about you. Now, grow a pair and tell me what you think. That if the election happened today, a pair of whatever, by the way, I did not clarify. Grow a pair of whatever you want to grow and tell me if it was held
If
today.
it was happening today,
yeah.
I mean, I'd guess that Trump is winning.
Yeah.
Based off of what I know.
Here's the hard thing for me. Yes, polling in the past has been wrong, and we have to consider that. However, it's been a lot better than it has been lately. Lately, it has been better in elections that have happened in midterms, as well as elections like special elections. You could say that actually there's a lot of improvements happening when it comes to polling. And that scares the heck out of me by a lot.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's definitive. And it being this close, that does seem like a thing that would usually favor Republicans. Now, there are some things that give me hope. One, we aren't living in 2016 where it was a surprise because people were also lying to pollsters because they were ashamed to admit it, that they were voting for Trump. They didn't even want to admit to themselves out loud. They were going to check the box, but they didn't want to admit it anywhere else. No, people aren't actually ashamed of that. If anything, it's flipped a little bit because popular culture, thanks to Twitter and shit, now it's very, very popular in different circles and stuff. And you will get more attention and Elon Musk will like you and maybe give you $1 million illegally, when it comes to the ones. But yeah, fuck that guy in his fucking face. His fucking face. Like I thought, my face, granted, it's getting pretty good, but I thought my face was a problem. His face, much bigger problem. It's very trollish, and how does he flatly frown like that? His frown doesn't actually curve down. It just goes wide.
I don't know that I paid that much attention to it. Just his jumping is really giving me the ick lately.
It is icky.
For some reason, there's a lot of videos of him jumping. I don't know why.
And his little tummy falling out. His little Ozempic tummy. I have no problem with anybody doing Ozempic, for the record. Do what you need to do for yourself. But he's doing it and I hate him. So I'm going to make fun of what he does. And so I just wanted to be there. Basically, we're going to continue this conversation, but I say we continue this conversation by actually hearing the calls that we talked to today. And let's go ahead and start off with I think I want to start with Andrew because I think his will be the most important. And I know some of you leave after you finish your bowel movement and you don't press play again. And I'll do that. No, tomorrow, today's bowel movement is this episode. Tomorrow's bowel movement will be an episode of Science Versus or something.
Oh my God.
Great show, Science Versus, by the way. Anyway, this from Andrew. Andrew, hello.
Eve and Jimmy, it is a pleasure to be with you. Eve, congratulations on the new album and the nuptials. Very exciting for you.
So kind.
Very kind. Andrew, as things stand now, what does your gut tell you? Will Trump win on November 5th?
I do not know. I do not know who's going to win. I am hopeful that Trump is going to lose and Harris is going to win, but it is a coin toss. Everything tells us it's a coin toss. So what I am doing is putting my head down and doing as much work as I can to make sure that Harris wins and Trump loses. I am volunteering, I am donating, I'm doing calls like this, I'm doing fundraisers for the Harris campaign. Everybody needs to stop paying attention to what the polls say, paying attention to what the early voting numbers look like. None of that matters. All that matters now is putting your head down and doing some damn work to make sure that a fascist does not take power in the United States. All that said, I'm hopeful. I am very, very worried. I am scared, but I also have a tremendous amount of hope.
I wish Andrew would have chosen to just say yes or no, but it's okay. Andrew, why is that how you feel?
Why am I hopeful? Because that's who I am. Again, the facts and the data all tell us that this is a coin toss, that it's going to be an incredibly close race. It was last time. The last election was basically decided by 42,000 votes across 3 different states. I think we're going to see smaller margins here. It's going to be very, very close. I don't know that we will know on election night. I would expect a week, possibly even 2, before we know, and I expect Trump to sow a lot of chaos while we await official results. There is also a possibility that all the polls tell us that this is going to be close. Fine. But they're probably all off in the same way, right? Like, it's likely that whichever way one swing state goes, probably the other 7 are going to go as well, if there was any kind of polling error, which there has been in the past, though more recently the pollsters have been pretty good. So all of that, I don't know. And again, so the one thing that I can control in this is how much work I can do to make sure that Trump doesn't win. I coached a 9-year-old's soccer team, and whenever they would lose, they would take it kind of hard. And then I would tell them, look, the only thing that you can do is control how hard you played and what you did. You can't do any more than that. You can't control how the refs are going to ref the game. You can't control the weather. You can't control how good the other team is. All you can control is how hard you work and what you make sure you leave everything out on the field. And that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what I hope everybody listening is to do.
And so with that information in mind, how would you hope that people who hear your words would respond to those words?
I hope everybody listening to this goes and volunteers and donates and spends the last few days that we have making sure to get out 1, 2, 3, 10, 15, 20 votes for Harris and not for Trump. Text your family members, text people you know in swing states. Go through your list of contacts, go through your list of Facebook friends, go through your list of Instagram follows. Anybody and everybody that you know in a swing state, in Michigan, in North Carolina, in Wisconsin, in Pennsylvania, in Arizona, get in with these people. Make calls. Maybe it's your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend that you haven't talked to in 3 or 4 years. Call them up to tell them to go vote for Harris. Do everything you can so that when this result rolls around, you know that you did all you could. You don't leave anything out on the field. Or you leave everything out on the field, excuse me.
I mean, just listening to that, first of all, there's like so much there, but thank you, Andrew, for that. Andrew Seidel is a constitutional lawyer. He has represented FFRF, is constantly in these battles and fights. He's a part of Humanists for Harris with Jamie Raskin and others, and is an actual badass doing the hard work. And this seems to be a guy who is very aware of all of the shortcomings politically, is actually actively working in those zones, will know exactly what shortcomings there may be from a party, from a candidate and everything, but understands, as the author of The Founding Myth and other great works that are about America and what America actually should be like, he understands that fascism is a bigger threat than any reason why you might not like Harris, period. Right. And is very, I feel, direct on now is the time to go and do everything. Yeah. Have you, do you know of any personal, you don't have to name them off, but any friends of yours that maybe weren't going to vote? Have you successfully shamed them into voting, to actually going and doing something?
I'm not sure. I mean, I mostly, luckily, and not luckily, I'm mostly hearing from my friends that either they already have voted for Kamala or for Trump. So that's kind of the people I have actively in my life. And, other than that, I have heard a lot from just different people that follow me that I'm not friends with, who have been actually swayed to go vote. And that is encouraging. I know Matt and I talked to a couple of people the other night that on air decided, to change their mind. And so that makes me feel somewhat hopeful, because that means it's still not over yet. That means people's minds can still be changed, but it really feels like an uphill battle. So
the thing that I have found is kind of working. Obviously, we're doing the call-in shows as we can. We'll have another one Saturday night with, I think, Forrest and Josie. We're trying to do our best on our end as far as with a platform and distribution. Right. We're putting up a lot of clips every day here between the election of those shows to see if we can get the shorter ones to people. We're doing what we can on that end, but I will tell people individually, one of the best motivating arguments I've found is kind of funny. And I said it as a joke the first time and went, holy shit. You just asked them, okay, you'd prefer Harris, but you don't feel like your vote matters, blah, blah, blah. You care about that. Name for me one person in your state you hate who is definitely going to go vote for Trump. And then they name it. And I go cancel their vote. You can literally, That's it. Just pick a person who's voting for Trump in your state. If you know you would prefer Harris over Trump, that is the better answer and solution, just go cancel the Trump voters, a specific one. Go cancel their vote. Cast for Harris, it cancels their vote. If you can't be motivated by what should be obvious, be motivated by what often motivates me. So I'm not even going to judge you. Spite. Be motivated by spite, by pettiness. There are noble and petty reasons to go out and vote for Harris, and I implore you to do so. So while we have Andrew here, who actually is somebody who is more qualified than almost any of us to speak to it, one more question for Andrew. And the question is simply, I mean, he's very, very familiar with the history of violence and the present of violence. He participated in making the January 6th report and knows the ins and out of that riot probably better than anybody else you have known, and politically the history of Christian nationalism, and has written the book on that very topic. So the question for Andrew very simply is, what most worries you about this election, the outcome of this election, and perhaps most specifically if Donald Trump does not accept the results of the election?
So in terms of Trump not accepting the results, kind of the top three things that I'm worried about, or violence, the top three things that I'm worried about, maybe not in order, are first, intimidation or possibly violence at the polls on election day, especially in cities in swing states, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, Detroit, Phoenix. Trump has been talking about this for a while. He has been recruiting, quote, poll watchers with an eye, I think, towards this violence. You know, again, the last election was decided by 40,000 votes in 3 states. So even a little intimidation at the polls could go a long way, right? Like people at the polls with open carry firearms, right? Or even worse, bomb threats or fires at voting precincts in those areas, right? This could create utter chaos and could really lead to some serious problems. I will say that I am not the only person who is aware of that as a possibility, right? Like I'm not in some sort of special circle here. The people in the know this is a possibility and are planning for it. So that's one worry. The second worry, and this is something that I'm not hearing talked about enough, is a close election and a Republican-controlled House fucking around with the Electoral College votes. Right? All they would need is enough chaos, see the first worry, to kick the vote for the presidency to the House itself. This is a procedure. It's known as the contingent election of the president, and this was actually one of the hopes behind January 6th in the first place. So if this happens, if the electoral votes are unclear or there's no clear majority, then the House of Representatives elects the president. And each state delegation in the House gets one vote for president. And the 26 states that are almost certain to have majority GOP delegations could then vote Trump in as president against both the popular vote and the Electoral College vote, and all of a sudden they have effectively seized power. This is really what the goal behind January 6th was, and the chaos that they were trying to cause by challenging those votes was to get the House to eventually decide the election. This is something that I am really, truly worried about. It's, I think, disturbingly likely if the outcome is close. And if Republicans are in a position of power to do it, I think it's like a 50-50 chance that they go for the power grab. And even as I am saying that, I'm thinking, man, I am just too generous and wonder where I'm getting that optimism from. So that's a big, big, big concern for me. The third concern is the more obvious one that I think people are talking about, which is that Trump tries another coup as he did on January 6th. I'm actually not too worried about this one, because he doesn't have power right now. And I do not think Biden is going to let him fuck around the way he did when Trump had power, right? There's not going to be this 3-hour gap where Trump just does nothing, because Biden is going to stop any kind of violence right away. Now, of course, Trump could still call his followers to violence. That's probably likely. His followers might turn to violence on their own. But I tend to think that Biden and the administration are preparing for those possibilities and will put an end to them pretty quickly. So for me, the sort of scarier versions are violence and intimidation at the polls on election day, or a close election that the Republican-controlled House uses as a way to elect Trump. through this contingent election of the president. But those are my two sort of biggest concerns. And I hope that none of them come to pass, but us being aware of it and being ready for it is certainly one of the best. Yeah, it's scary, everybody. But being ready for it and being prepared and talking about it now is a way to prevent it from happening. Here's hoping.
And while that was all the time we had with Andrew to be able to get stuff from him, something that it actually also adds why it's so important that everybody go vote blue down ballot as well. Because one of the things Andrew is mentioning there is the contingent election. And the contingent elections are based on the incoming, not the outgoing. The only member of the outgoing that is still a part of it would be the vice president is still the president of the Senate. And so in the event of a tie, there would be the tie-breaking vote still cast by Kamala Harris. That is only regarding the vice president, though. The president would be appointed by the House. And yes, that they get to do it however they want. Each state gets one vote. This is also potentially going to happen anyway. This could happen like actually in a way that isn't a steal. If on the day of the election, either basically you have the Democrats win Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and then you have Republicans win Nevada, Arizona, Georgia, North Carolina, those being the swing states that we're looking at. If then either Nebraska's 2nd district or one of the districts in Maine, extra districts in Maine, go red, that actually ties them at 269 to 269. And in that scenario, that it would be a contingent election as well, meaning that Trump would become president. Now, the funny thing is it kind of looks like we might have a tied Senate again. So Trump would become president and Tim Walz would become vice president, which would be wild. It would be and then I've said it before, I'll say it again. I will wake up every day praying to the God I don't believe in that cholesterol finally does the job. But in the meantime, natural causes, people, that's all I want. In the meantime, this is all terrifying. And the fact that he, again, a guy who's very familiar with it, is so concerned, I think needs to make everybody pause. Any notes before we start? I'm probably just gonna zoom through the rest of these.
That was, I don't remember if I said it on this show or what, but recently I was talking about my concern, like active present concern, is voter intimidation at the polls. And I think Andrew made a really great point saying that he's not so worried about a January 6th situation because he's right. Trump isn't actively in office right now. So that does make things a lot different than last time around. But yeah, it's really concerning. And it sounds like even from this very hopeful perspective, best case scenario, this is going to be really stressful.
Yes, I'm already gonna be.
Right.
Eve's had a tough week and still living in a sort of dissociation from.
That's true.
It's so close though. I've made myself sick multiple times thinking about it. We're gonna move through the rest of these a little bit faster with a little bit less in between. But let's start with Seth Andrews. Seth Andrews, thank you so much for joining us.
Hey, Jimmy and Eve. It is Seth Andrews, host of the Thinking Atheist podcast.
And Seth, the question is, as things stand now, does your gut tell you that Trump will win on November 5th? Please don't say I don't know, but I'll accept it if you do.
Why do I think the Democratic ticket's going to pull this out? It might be because I'm delusional. I hope not. But, and despite the fact that the polls are a dead heat, which is crazy. We got a Hitler lover, I'm saying, a sexual predator, convicted felon, grifter, a guy who's selling, somebody's out there selling Trump shoes and golden diapers and shit. Like, the fact that it's even close to me tells me that, we've got a problem well beyond. Donald Trump is both symptom and cancer. He's kind of the black light on many of the problems in the culture. And once he's gone, those problems remain. But I do sense that there is a desire for an adult in the room more than the desire to enable a predator and a con and a grifter. Donald Trump, he's become so wacky and unhinged that I think some of the moderates are finally waking up to it. I think We've seen veterans come forward to denounce him. In my home state, Strawberry Red, Oklahoma, the mayor of Oklahoma City just issued a public statement saying he's voting for Kamala Harris. There's a ton of people with an R by their name who are defending democracy and decency, and they're doing so publicly. And I think that is an indication that we may see a more decisive Kamala victory in November than the polls indicate. And I don't trust polls. I mean, I'm 56 years old. I've never been polled, right? You can't go out. I don't think you can go out and sample 1,000 people in a nation of 360 million and call it an indicator. They're good clickbait, but I really feel like it's going to be 60-40 at least in November for the Democratic ticket. Now, Trump and his cronies and the MAGA culture are going to cry foul and flip out. I fear violence and all those things. That's a whole other conversation. But have we come to our senses enough to prevent fascism, the Handmaid's Tale, the celebration and worship of what may be the biggest cult leader in the history of American politics? You know, I've got hope and optimism, and I think it's warranted. So I'll call it 60-40 Kamala Walz.
Anyway, thank you, Seth. We're going to jump on to the next one. As I said, that one, I definitely more, I don't know, that is more optimistic than I can be. Are you familiar with Footless Jo, Eve Was Framed?
I am.
I just love her to pieces. And this is going to be the conversation with Jo. So
I'm excited.
Jo, sounds like I'm doing G.I. Joe thing. But Jo, the question is, does your gut tell you that Donald Trump is going to win?
Does my gut tell me that Trump will win on November 5th? I'm going to go with no. I was definitely wrong about that back in 2016, heartbreakingly. But I don't have a gut feeling that he's going to win this year. That might be blind optimism, but we're going to see.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, I guess the question is, why is that what your gut says?
Yeah.
That might be influenced by the fact that I live in Denver, which is a pretty Democratic area. But if I do drive south, I do see a lot of Go Trump signs and trucks and flags down like the Colorado Springs area. So I'm just going to go off gut instinct with this one.
Sheer intuition on this one. I like it.
But with that information in mind, what would you tell other people?
I don't know how I hope people would respond to hearing that. I think it's going to vary depending on what someone's preconceived notion is, right? Like whose side they're on or whatever. I think my biggest hope and concern for this election is that regardless of what happens, that there will not be a lot of violence, that people can, that as a country we can find our way through this mess.
Thank you so much. Footless Jo. If you don't follow Footless Jo, you should follow her everywhere. What do you think of this? Is so much optimism so far. I feel like I'm doing Matt next for a palate cleanser of
a little dose of reality. Yeah, I mean, I love it. I feel like I was feeling that way last week. It's just being aware of everything the last couple of days. It's just not, I still think it's not looking good. I appreciate the optimism, and I hope that they're right. I don't know that I can agree yet.
And I feel like I still want to emphasize that the entire thing, to me, is act like we're not right, that they're not right. Behave right now as though he's going to win unless you do something about it. And everyone effing do something about it. I just censored myself because I knew that would pull you to me more. Because if I just said fucking, everybody like, hey, he's using his normal language. Effing actually sticks out. You pay attention to it. Do you want to go ahead and set us up with Matt here?
Yes, Matt, talk to us.
Hello, Jimmy and Eve. Jimmy has a podcast? I didn't know Jimmy had a podcast. How did Jimmy get a podcast? Anyway, the question I'm supposed to be asking is, what's my gut feel? Is it going to be Trump or Harris, and why? And a week ago, I would have said Harris, and now my gut is leaning towards Trump. I genuinely hope I'm wrong. I don't know if I've ever hoped I was wrong more. The way I look at this is the number of non-voters, third-party voters, protest voters that I've been in contact with on the shows and on social media is increasing. And I think they're well-intentioned people with bad ideas and who've bought into propaganda. In my view, the house is on fire. And some of us are grabbing the hose, which is a little leaky and imperfect, while Trump and his supporters are trying to throw gasoline on the house. And then there's some people who should be helping us man this hose, but they've decided that because the house was built flammable and it didn't have a fire suppression system, that maybe they should just let the house burn down. And they're not going to help. They're going to lobby for let's weather this, and that will help people in Palestine or Gaza, or that will help the Democratic Party. And in reality, no votes and third-party votes don't help anybody. They're like thoughts and prayers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ugh.
As he spoke, I realized a bias that's coming up in me as well. And that's that I'm also having those conversations, but we're inviting those conversations. So I'm getting pelted by them.
Yeah,
and yet
the three of us have been doing a lot of that.
I still can't shake them. And I will tell you this too. I don't even know how many of those third-party voters and people claiming to be that way are even actually telling the truth. Because I've called out, I want to say twice now, and neither of them denied it. Callers who were calling in doing that. And I said, hey, I actually recognize the pattern of your language. I know you're actually a Trump supporter trying to not sway Harris voters to Trump, just sway them away either from voting or to third party. And while they did not deny they were doing that at all, I don't remember how the conversation continued, but I remember it sticking out to me. Like, if somebody accused me of that, the first thing I would do is, no, that's not true. I genuinely support idiot councilwoman. I genuinely support Russian puppet. Oh no, that was the same person twice. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I noticed that too. When I posted who I voted for, I had a lot of these protest voters upset with me, saying that I want genocide and, that whole argument, which people can go hear my arguments against that from Saturday Night with Matt. But I noticed a lot of Trump supporters were going and liking their comments and saying, don't vote for, it's like, hello, you're winding up on the wrong side, no matter, you think that you're doing a helpful thing and you're not. What I have to remind myself.
I was just saying, look at the ads that Elon Musk is putting up, his PAC is putting up, where they're literally acting like they're pro, and they're targeting areas with a large Arab population. And they're like, Kamala Harris did this, this, and this, and that's bad. But you know why you should still vote for her? Because she loves Israel so much and is the most pro-Israel. And they're literally targeting Arab areas. And their thought is, if they just bring up that she's married to Doug Emhoff, who's a Jew, that they'll be anti-Semitic enough to not vote. And they make it sound like it's a pro-Harris. They aren't actually, nobody's trying to not fight dirty, especially not in the year of Trump. This is fucking dirty ass fucking fighting. And it's gross.
Yeah, it's very frustrating. I feel most closely aligned so far to Matt's perspective. And again, you're right. That could be some of our bias, but.
Yeah. Let's hear from Owen Morgan. Owen Morgan, hello.
Hey, Jimmy and Eve. Hope you're doing well.
Yes, Owen. So the question we have for you is, what does your gut tell you? Is Trump going to win?
You were asking some questions about my take on the election, so I figured I would give you my opinion. My gut tells me that right now, Harris is going to win in November. I don't believe Donald Trump is going to win.
I have to say that I am very surprised that
I know, me too.
I'm like, we're the party poopers, but then the question becomes, for Owen, why do you feel that way?
Here's my reason. Just looking at how much people despise Donald Trump, there's like a negative enthusiasm factor to him. And there's an enthusiasm factor to Harris. I was talking to my brother the other day, and he told me that his father-in-law, super far-right, Trump-loving guy, mailed in his ballot for Harris. I asked him why, and he basically said he doesn't like that Donald Trump is an obnoxious fool, pretty much, and he's a bully. Now, I don't know why it took him 8 years to come to that conclusion, but it's a big shift. Just looking at the difference between the empty seats in Harris's rallies and the empty seats in Trump's rallies, it all adds up to a circumstantial picture. But that's all we really have, though, to work off of, isn't it? Our gut. That's why my gut tells me it's going to be Harris.
And with that information, if somebody heard you say that, how would you want them to respond?
When people hear this, I hope that they're not going to get lazy about anything. I hope they're going to go out there and vote at any cost. And you know what? Even if you aren't voting for the president, you should still vote in local elections. You have so much sway over those. In my opinion, even when it's not a presidential election, you should be out there voting. Your voice has a lot more weight in local elections. Hey, did you know Jimmy Snow has a podcast? Anyway, thanks for hearing out my opinion, and have a good one.
I assume that was for his cat at the end there. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we would also say definitely vote for president. I can't support any abstaining, even at this point in states where you're like, this state is locked in, because you will still signal whoever comes after Trump is going to suck. Hopefully, whoever comes after Harris, we will have pushed farther left, as we are doing. Leftism is on the rise in the country. I don't know why there are these people who think we need accelerationism when this is the Overton window has favored us ever. And I hope that means that we'll have, but whoever replaces him, it's probably going to be another Trump, first of all, or it's going to be JD Vance. Whoever comes next is also going to be terrible. And whatever votes you put out for Harris in areas that they have locked up tells them they still have to spend money there. It's actually still good, even if you are not in a swing state. And there are going to be, I would say my biggest prediction of the night is that one of the 7 swing, or rather there will be a swing state on the night that was not anticipated. I think that there will, I don't know if it's Florida. I don't know if I doubt it's Texas. I don't know, but I think there's going to be a state surprise, because I think there will be at least one state where the women will overwhelm it. That was a typically red state, because abortion is on the ballot.
Yeah.
I hope so too. That's my big, that there will be a swing state. I don't think that necessarily guarantees that Harris is going to win, but I think there will be at least one unexpected swing state, and that should favor the Democrats if it happens. Now, Eve, would you like to cue us up with the call with Josie, who I think everyone needs to hear from and impresses me in similar ways to Andrew?
Yes, Josie, we would love to chat with you and hear what your gut tells you about whether Donald Trump will be president or not.
Hey, Jimmy and Eve. This is Josie Caballero, one of the hosts of the Transatlantic Call-In Show.
Who we love.
Yes.
Very much.
But to answer your question about how things stand and what my gut tells me about the election November 5th, I believe that Kamala Harris is going to win. I think that there is going to be a lot of surprises this election, and I think that we are going to be very happy. Now, what I am concerned about is the fact that if this election won't be called for a long time because it's so close, I think that might be an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
so the
very
reason
valid.
that I think that Harris is going to win is because of the field operations about what is going on with the Trump campaign. As you may know, Elon Musk is actually running the field operations for the Trump campaign, and it's not going well. It's been reported now that 25% of all the responses from the canvassing and phone banks are fraudulent. The app is glitchy, people are not getting paid, and it's just not going well. And he's already fired a group of folks and is trying to hire folks back 2 weeks before the election, which I think is absolutely absurd.
And funny.
And since this election is so close, it's going to come down to the field margin. And what we're able to see is that the Harris campaign has a much better field going into this final days of the election, with millions of phone calls being made, hundreds of thousands of doors being knocked across all of the swing states, and more voters are going to have voting plans as they go out to the polls. And we can already see this has been effective in having record turnout in a lot of the states through early voting and mail-in ballots.
I appreciate all of that. A lot of hope coming. Eve, what's the next question for Josie?
The next question for Josie is, how do you hope people who hear this will respond?
And I want people to know when they hear this response to make sure you keep voting. Make sure that you have everybody that you know in your life voting. If you can take a volunteer shift, take a volunteer shift, make some phone calls, knock on some doors, jump on a bus, go to your nearest swing state and actually start banging on doors yourself. I believe that with the prediction that Harris is going to win, that means you actually have to go and do something. So don't take this answer as, oof, what a relief, I don't have to vote. You have to go vote and you have to stay active. It's only 11 days. Suck it up. Go do something. I'm leading several phone banks as we are heading into this election.
Yeah, I think those are wise words, and I appreciate hearing. I love the gut check responses and everything, but I appreciate hearing some kind of concrete reasons behind Josie's thoughts on how this is all going to go, and even just that insight on how Elon's running things, which is not surprising, but that's helpful information, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess my thing is that, and we'll see how some of these other calls go, but I think that my reaction to a lot of these are, if you are hearing this information, the way I hope you react is don't believe me. Believe that she's not going to win and go do the work. Go put it in. But, we'll see. Maybe I'm going to be surprised by more calls. I am genuinely surprised at all the optimism we're hearing from our friends.
Yeah, me
I guess
too.
I'm happy to hear it. It's making me feel a little better. And yet, at the end of the day, I still feel like there's a decent chance we're about to find out that Donald Trump and fascism will ride again in this country. And I can't let myself get my hope up too much. But let's go ahead and hear from, I don't know if you're familiar with the creator. He's kind of a legend in the space, Mr. Deity, aka Brian Dalton. Brian is somebody who was a big part of my ex-Mormon deconstruction. And Brian, hello.
Hey, Jimmy. And is that you, Eve? Oh, you're both looking so fantastic. So my gut tells me that Trump will go down in flames on November 5th, though I'd settle for the 6th, 7th, 8th, etc. Since the brutal and unjust death of Roe by the new Holy Roman Empire on our Supreme Court, the polls have consistently underestimated Democratic return and vehemence. That's your word for the day, by the way. Oh, poet and didn't know it. People hearing this gut check will undoubtedly respond by recognizing my lifetime of expertise in such matters, my lifelong dedication to truth, justice, and the secular way, and my overwhelming, unrivaled brilliance in general. That assumes we're talking about people with an IQ over 100, of course.
Well, again, so much optimism, and I'm almost
hope.
Like, I have
Are we
to
just
go with,
assholes?
why don't you set up the call with Arden? Because I feel like Arden will bring us back down to our level. And then maybe we've got a few more people still to go through. We still have to hear from Aron Ra. We're going to hear from Alyssa Ljub, David Fitzgerald, the author, Erika from Gutsick Gibbon, Hopeless SoFrantic. Jesus Christ himself is actually, I've got it from Jesus Christ. Yeah. Godless Engineer. We've got more people to talk to about it. Why don't you set up the call with Arden?
Hey, Arden, let us know. What is your gut telling you about the presidential election?
Hey there, Eve and Jimmy. Thanks for having me on the podcast. So as to whether my gut says Trump will win, unfortunately, right now, I do feel that way. For a number of reasons, and I'm not sure they're all necessarily good reasons. But for one, I've been seeing that Republicans are kind of outperforming expectations for in-person and mail-in early voting. So that's a little nerve-wracking. I've also seen that women are the majority in attendance. So, just because someone's a registered Republican doesn't necessarily mean they're voting for Trump, although, it's really hard to parse that out. Also, I think my sample is skewed because we spend so much time talking to Trump voters and non-voters and third-party voters, and I just see this a lot. And I have them in my life, too. And so it feels really frustrating. And I guess what I want people to get out of this is that we're looking at fascism, at Christian nationalism, at Trump will make Palestine far worse. Queer people will lose their rights, particularly trans people. Women will lose their bodily autonomy. I'm terrified, and I just want people to show up. Please vote. Also, I heard Jimmy Snow has a podcast, so check that out maybe. Yeah. Anyway, thanks guys. Love you.
Thank you, Arden.
Yeah. Can you tell which of us are dealing with the most third-party voters and Trumpers and everything? Because I feel like we're all just we're fucked.
But also, I kind of want people to be with us on this right now. Listen, I'm glad that I'm able to that we're giving people a little bit of both from people we know and love. But to some degree, I'm almost disappointed in some of the people not being I want to believe. That'll be my impression of Seth. I can't do a good impression. That's voice super. Hey there, I just don't have the baritone to pull it off. Damn, son, where'd you find this? What? I can't do any of it. Hello, my name is Earl. Anyway, that's not even his voice. My name is Earl. I to some degree want to be I'm hopeful because I don't feel like I can accept that the world is that bad. But it has been that bad once before. It was close to that bad another time. It was close to that bad another time where they almost got to be president anyway, as Andrew mentioned on January 6th. And so, yeah, I'm feeling shitty. I'm feeling shitty. So Aron Ra, first things first. Aron, let's talk to Aron.
Hello, Jimmy and Eve.
Aron, the question of the day is, what does your gut tell you about who is going to win this election? Is Trump about to win?
As things stand now, does your gut tell you that Trump will win on November 5th? Sadly, yes. Why?
Yes, why?
Well, because it seems that people are stupid. Every time I think that somebody's going to take care of something in the most obvious way, it doesn't happen. When I thought that Trump would be brought up on charges years ago, it didn't happen until shortly before the election.
Yep.
When it happened that someone came to Elon Musk and says you can't bribe people by giving them $1 million to vote for Trump because that's illegal, or they said that might be illegal, they didn't just flat out arrest him. They haven't charged him with anything. And so they're just going to let these people do whatever the hell they want to do, and Trump can make any threats that he wants. He can be as openly treasonous as he wants. He can say that he's going to change the Constitution just like Putin did. He can say that he's going to continue to remain in office, that they're going to completely distort the government into an authoritarian, oppressive regime, and nobody's going to do anything about it. I've talked to enough Trump supporters who have said that they don't want democracy. They want authoritarianism. They want a monarch. They want a king, as long as it's their king. Of course, they don't want somebody else's dictator. They want their own dictator. I guess that these people, especially these religious extremists, have been so far up into authoritarianism because it's one of the natural states of the religion, isn't it? Do as I say, just because I said so, without question. And that's where their mind is. So, yeah, I'm afraid that Trump is going to win because people are stupid. Even the smart people are not doing what they're supposed to be doing in many cases. So, and other people, most of them, the vast majority of people, have to tell me that, well, if Trump wins, we'll just have to muddle through another 4 years of a bad president before we get... No, it's not 4 years, not this time. If Trump is elected again, that will be our last election. That's it. That's the end of the republic, the end of the Constitution. So that's my answer on that.
Now, armed with Aron, first of all, much more attuned to my things. Aron, I will say, I hope he's wrong that it will be the last election, but there is a totally valid point. But Aron,
the fact that that's a fear, yeah.
Yeah, armed with what you've just said, how would you hope people would respond to hearing that from you?
How do you hope people who hear this will respond? Well, I hope they will get out and vote in as strong a numbers as possible to change the future, because I'm afraid I'm genuinely afraid. It's not like every election you worry about, the worst candidate getting into office, but it's not like this. It was never an existential threat that it would be the end of the republic. This is unique, and if we win this one, then I'm going to be taking steps myself, becoming even more active than ever I have been, because I don't want to see another existential threat like this one again. I'm going to be so much more active now. However, if Trump wins again, then my job is defending the First Amendment, and there won't be one. I will become a criminal in my own country.
Love the honesty happening over here.
Yeah.
Even though it's deeply upsetting.
Yeah, it's, and to at least have one person so far, I mean, Andrew also laid out some of the threats, but really articulate what some of the bigger threats are. And then people, well, that's extreme. The man on Truth Social literally said, sometimes it is okay to suspend the rules, even those found in our Constitution, to terminate the Constitution when things are this bad. He proposed terminating the Constitution to make himself president again. The guy... There's not a good outcome there's only a least terrible outcome. There's not a good outcome to this election, but please go vote for the least terrible one, which is that it's so overwhelming the victory that it cannot be denied against and that Donald Trump goes down in flames. But yes, I very much appreciate Aron's thoughts, which are much more aligned with our own. Why don't we, I guess, Eve, you think you're her best friend. Why don't you bring in Alyssa?
Hello, Alyssa.
Hi, Jimmy. Hi, Eve.
So tell us, what is your gut telling you on whether Donald Trump will be president or not?
As things are right now, it's hard to say what my gut is telling me will happen on November 5th because every day feels so different. I want to say that Trump will not win on November 5th. And the reason I feel that way is because I am really, really hoping that the support that we see for him is a loud minority and that there will be a whole wonderful group of well-informed voters that will show up and make a choice that is better for the future of this country.
I love being a co-host with Alyssa because we do have she has the bright perspective, and I hope that ends up being true. I want to hear, Alyssa, why do you think that?
My hope is that all of the information that's been distributed about the plans that the Trump presidency has for the United States, especially on my platform where we talk about sex education and women's health services and things in that category, things that are at a serious risk with a Trump presidency in the future. So I hope that information has made people really understand how significant of a decision this really is.
Yeah, I mean, luckily, people are feeling more and more motivated, I think, to get that information out to people that do care. Even people that would have voted for Trump otherwise, when they are properly informed about some of the issues that they also care about, which go directly against what Trump is trying to accomplish, there is hope that some of them will change their mind. That would be the Republican voters, primarily women, that I'm rooting for and hoping that they vote in their own best interest for once. Alyssa, how do you hope people who hear this will respond?
I hope that people who hear this feel encouraged to have their vote be heard. I want people to feel hopeful for our future, but not so hopeful that they don't show up on November 5th. So please, please, please show up.
Yes, agreed. Go do it now.
Thank you, Alyssa. It's early voting is open in so many states. Go vote now. Go vote right now. You go vote right now.
Do it.
We have some more to get through. Just a few more, but I want to hear from everybody here. So let's talk to Godless Engineer John. Hello.
Hey, Jimmy and Eve.
John, what does your gut tell you is going to happen? Is Trump about to pull this off?
So my gut is telling me that Trump is not going to win on November 5th, but I do think that it's going to be a rather tight race, and that makes me a little bit worried. I think that Kamala Harris has a lot of support behind her and a lot of support of a lot of majorly influential people, and so I think that she's going to pull ahead. I think that Trump is going to try to declare winning the presidency before the votes are actually counted. And I think that there's going to be a lot of contention around voting this year. But ultimately, I feel like Kamala Harris is going to come out on top.
And so I guess I want to know why you believe that.
Well, I feel this way because of the amount of support that Kamala Harris has been able to garner from a lot of people and the amount of funding that she's gotten. And I feel like the American people desperately want a lot of the things that she is talking about and that she wants to provide through her policies, and that the conservatives can only spin propaganda against the liberals and Kamala Harris's campaign. And I don't think that those are all that convincing.
So with this information, though, what would you like people to take away from it?
I hope that people will hear this and will definitely take into account the amount of support that Kamala Harris has been able to garner and be able to feel secure in, voting this November. And I just hope people get out and they vote. Especially for Kamala Harris, but just vote in general. I hope that people will get out and vote, and that maybe my opinion will empower them to not feel like, their vote doesn't matter. I hope that nobody feels that way.
Well, thank you, John, though I will point out that staunchly different between John and I do not share the sentiment of I hope everyone will vote even if it's not for Harris. If you are not going to vote for Harris, I hope that you... not even stay home, because that's almost saying that I'm saying it's okay to abstain from voting either. But specifically, if you're going to vote for any, right, be different,
change your
be
damn
better, or step on a lot of Legos. That's what I hope for you in your life. Just Lego. I'm glad I said that while he was trying to take a drink. I almost thwarted her.
It was almost a spit take.
Almost.
Oh, man.
Let's hear from the man himself, Jesus Christ. Hello.
Hello, Jimmy. Hello, Eve.
Jesus. And for those of you who don't know, this is SoCal Jesus. So you can find him as Jesus Christ on YouTube. This is the man who skated for your sins. Jesus, what's your gut telling you? Who's going to win?
So how do I feel about November 5th? Well, I'd like to say that I'm actually feeling pretty optimistic about this.
And why? Why would you feel such a way, Jesus?
Why? Well, I got to say it just basically goes back to the last election. I mean, Trump lost last time, and that was against Biden. And I think that Kamala Harris is a much better candidate, especially with Tim Walz. And, I think with abortion on the ballot in many states where it counts, I think it's going to be okay.
Well, Jesus, I guess you would think that you're Jesus, but with that information, what will you hope people will do?
Well, I hope anyone listening is going to vote and going to make sure that somebody they know votes. Get as many people as you can to get out there and vote.
And I think I agree. Thank you so much, Jesus. I mean, Jesus is going to give a hopeful message, but he's already got the mansions in heaven. So what else? He'll be fine. He'll be fine in heaven. I have to once again say, I'm so surprised that so many people don't expect this country to suck as hard as I expect it to suck. This country is not one that usually, especially just thinking about what's gone down for the last 10 years, including the Trump administration, but just generally that you don't expect the country to suck. And it's nice, but it's also tough. It's also tough. Why don't you cue us up with Erika?
Erika, we want to hear from you. What is your gut saying about Donald Trump possibly becoming president?
Hi, Jimmy. Hi, Eve. You guys have caught me outside, so excuse all the dogs and crickets and birds and things. That's a good question. I think that Trump's probably going to lose. I know, optimistic maybe, but the reason for this is that I feel as though the support for him amongst his base is a lot lower than it's been in the past, especially where I live, which is a pretty conservative southern region. And I think that young people, especially the students that I have that come through my class, are pretty excited to go out and vote for Kamala. I've even seen some of them after they've voted, so it seems as though they're pouring out in record numbers.
So many hopeful perspectives happening. A lot more positivity, like you said. So far, I think it's just you, me, Matt, Arden, and
Andrew.
Aron.
Well, Andrew having like
Andrew
a good...
still was more hopeful than all of us.
He said, I don't know, and definitely said it is a real threat. It's a coin toss.
Yeah.
And if it's not definitive, we could lose even if we win. And so Andrews, I'm glad we started with Andrews because Andrews was I think the most important one.
Probably the most balanced response too.
Part of me wants to like argue with some of these people and let's schedule some, hey, you optimists, let's fight. But, I love these people. We've got two more, at least for the moment, unless Forrest messages me and like, actually, I am ready for you. But let's just try real quick and let's hear from author David Fitzgerald. David, hello.
Hi, Jimmy. Hi, Eve.
So, David, what's your gut tell you? Who's going to win?
The question is, will Trump win? The answer is, hell no, he's not going to win. The women in this country alone are going to hand him his ass. And everyone else who doesn't want this country to descend into fascism is also going to join in. So there's no way in hell he's not going to go down in flames. And he should.
Why do you think that is? Or unless that was what the answer you already gave, included it, in which case just how would you want people to respond to this info?
So courage. It's going to work out.
I think, thank you, David, so much. And that's, there might be a person who's hitting the depression right now that really needed to hear that. I don't know. But I got to tell y'all, I think that I don't think the election is going to be as definitive as many of my friends do. Even David's there. I'm like, I don't think we're going to trounce him, but I hope we win. And I hope I'm wrong. If I'm not, all of you are going to get your calls returned to you. And I'm just going to send you the clip of your call if Trump wins and I'm going to have you on the podcast, all of you on the podcast to review and tell us why you were so wrong. And if I end up being the one who's so wrong, I'm definitely going to own it. I definitely will.
Celebrating. I hope to God that I'm wrong. Like Matt said, never hoped more that I'm wrong about something, but
I will launch the OnlyFans. Finally, you all can watch the separation, the true amount of celebration I'll be doing. It's finally happening.
Did you say you can watch the separation?
The separation of my...
I'm launching an OnlyFans. You guys can watch the
Watch
separation.
my separation of my cheeks. No, that's too much. That's maybe... I'm not going to go that far. But yeah, goodness sakes, I suppose... I think what I'm going to try to do here is while we talk to Hopeless SoFrantic, she runs a charity called Hurting Home. She basically uses, actually speaking of OnlyFans, the money that she makes on OnlyFans to pay for a dog rescue that she runs. Amazing. It's incredible. She's a wonderful person. So let's hear from Hope while I also simultaneously try to get set up. And we'll try to call Forrest because he's a special boy and needs special treatment. And I know I'm hoping he hears me say that. And we'll see if we can get Forrest in a bit. But let's hear from Hope. Hope, hello.
Hi, Jimmy. It's good to hear from you. And hi, Eve. Nice to meet you.
Hi.
I'm surprised I haven't introduced the two of you before already. But Hope, the question is Trump going to pull this off? Please don't let me down. She and I are aligned on a lot of stuff. Let's see.
My gut reaction as things are now is that Harris will win the election, hopefully. I don't think it's going to be as close as it was the last election cycle. And the last election, I had a gut feeling that Trump would win, and he didn't. But I didn't factor in COVID and absentee voting, or voting in by mail, I guess I should say. I do think America as a whole doesn't want Trump. It's just a matter of inspiring people to physically go out and vote. Like, I think Trump supporters may be smaller in numbers, but they're way more passionate than Harris's voters. I don't think people are going to go to the polls this year because they're passionate about Harris. I think they're going to make it to the polls this year to like actively vote against Trump. But yeah, I ultimately think Harris will win. I live in a rural part of Texas, and even here, I feel like even Trump's supporters were more passionate 4 years ago than they are now.
Now, Hope obviously also lives with a bunch of stampeding horses, though that might be fixed by the time it comes out. Maybe you all won't know what I'm teasing about. But Hope, I guess, do you want to share a little bit of why you think that it's safe? We're safe.
How do I think people hearing this will respond?
But Hope, do you want to tell us what you like? If a person hears this, how would you like them to respond?
I hope that they'll realize that their vote is more important now than virtually ever. We already saw during Trump's last term how much damage he was able to do, like especially from a judicial side. And that amount of power is going to be amplified if he gets in these next 4 years. So I hope people really do go out and vote and make it a priority. I just finished voting myself like yesterday or the day before. I voted early, and everywhere I called around had like a 2-hour wait except for one polling place. But the one polling place that I found, it was kind of hidden away, but it was the wait was like maybe 5 minutes. So I guess my advice would be call around to polling stations, even if you have to take a day off of work. I know that's difficult, but it's the collective future of America is worth missing one day of work. I know it's easier said than done, but going during slow hours. Like I went around like 11 or 12 p.m. And it was pretty quick to get through that line. So yeah, go out and vote.
Thank you, Hope. Yes, please go vote. And that was good advice as far as the finding your stations and stuff. Some places you have an assigned place you have to go to. In some states, you have to go to your specific polling place. But find out, call around and see what the case is. Well, let's try. Let's try calling him, being the only one that we do actually live on air.
All right.
And let's see if our special boy appreciates his special treatment. And if he doesn't answer, I'm going to fucking kill him because he was the one who couldn't figure out how to make the voice memo thing work.
Oh my gosh.
What's up, dude?
You're the only one getting this special treatment, Forrest. Just
VIP
you. On everybody else. Aron Ra. Have you ever done technology with Aron Ra? Aron Ra figured out how to use the voice memo system.
I'm at a convention.
Aron
I haven't even been to my laptop.
Figured out how to use the voice memo system.
That's pretty
I'm
bad.
sure I could have. I haven't even gotten to chat. I'm sorry.
If you listen to the podcast that you're on, you'll hear all the sweet things I said about how you're our special boy who needs special privileges.
Secretly, we're glad we get to talk to you.
Yeah, you're fine to be the last one, I guess. At least we can put your face on the thumbnail now.
At least
and get
I'm
a little
glad
boost.
to. Maybe Jimmy's still gonna complain about it.
Frankly, I most enjoy when I call Forrest and talk about my bowel movements with him, and we're not going to get to do that in this episode. At least
it happens. It happens a lot.
Yeah, Forrest. Nobody listening thought I was joking. Not a soul thought. No, just a joke. Forrest, we're going to ask you the questions we've been asking everybody else. First, would you like to say hello? Tell people who you are, I guess.
Sure. Hi, I'm TV's The Internet's Forrest Valkai, and I'm here to answer some questions that I probably should have reviewed before this moment.
Yeah, if only somebody had sent
this is good. We want a gut reaction. I like this.
That's true. So that's the question.
That's what you're getting, because I haven't read anything for the whole day. I've been talking and stuff. Okay, what's going on?
Eve, why don't you do the honors?
Yeah. What does your gut tell you about November 5th. Is Donald Trump going to win?
If you had asked me a month ago, I would have said it's probably not. But like
today,
holy shit. Yeah, today it's hard because like there's the fact of the matter is a bunch of leftists are currently arguing over who's the better leftist by throwing their vote away in the right direction. And even if a bunch of people, like a significant majority, decided to vote third party, there's no consensus amongst leftists on which third party vote to be. So even if it was technically possible for somebody like Jill Stein to win, even if I agreed that she would be a good choice, she's not on the ballot in all the states, so she can't win anyway. But even if we all turned up and everybody decided to vote third party, a bunch of other people are going to vote for Claudia de la Cruz, isn't it? I think I don't remember her name exactly, but like the socialist candidates or someone's going to vote for somebody else, and like, or a bunch of people are going to abstain to vote, or a bunch of people are going to write in Bernie Sanders or some other fucking thing. And so it's going to be even more fragmented and even less effective. And meanwhile, everybody who is going to vote for Trump is going to vote for Trump. And so right now we have this major push where people are saying that genocide is their hard line and they can't vote for that. And at the end of the day, even if I agreed that Trump and Harris were exactly the same on the issue of Palestine, which they are not, Harris has moved significantly away from the rest of the Democratic Party because of social pressure already. Even if that wasn't the case, I guarantee Trump is going to be worse on it. But even if that wasn't the case, even if they were the same, he's going to be worse on fucking everything else. And so, like, all these people want to cosplay revolutionary and pretend like they're going to completely overthrow the American empire and change our entire voting system because they wrote in fucking Alfred E. Newman. And meanwhile, they're sacrificing the rights and lives and dignity of women, trans people, gay people, disabled people, immigrants, all these other people that need this protection, need this help. And a bunch more women are going to bleed out in a fucking hospital parking lot because you decided that you wanted to make a statement about Gaza without actually helping them in any way. So at this point, I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm really nervous about it, and I really want people to get the fuck up and vote for Harris so that you can then spend the next 3 years and 364 days criticizing her and chastising her and excoriating the system that got her there and decrying the problems of the American system and of the Democratic Party and denouncing everything about this government that funds genocide. All of that can happen the rest of the 4 years. But first, we have to make sure that we are able to do that and we're not being thrown in jail by a fascist dictator who has openly said that we need to be jailing political dissidents. That's my answer.
It's been crazy because we've gotten answers from 16 other people, and they were mostly optimistic with a few exceptions in there. And I've been like every time, just like, how do you all have this kind of hope? Because it's, to me, I'm like, I don't know if this sounds like good analysis or good denial. That sweet, sexy denial that holds you and spoons you and makes you feel all better. And yet it's got a bad side to it. And as soon as you fall asleep, it's going to cover your head and it's going to hotbox you under the blanket. That's, by the way, the question was, would you like the chicken or the fish? I thought of that like when you were a good couple of minutes into it. All right. Well, Eve, what's the next question?
Why do you think? Well, you kind of answered that already. What do you hope people's response to your gut check is?
I hope that there's a lot of people out there that are really worried about this election, that are considering abstaining from the election, that are wanting to vote for the third party, and for good reason. I've made, frequent exception for anybody who is actually Palestinian or Lebanese or is actually from these areas, or if they're a Black or Indigenous person here in America. You lived your whole life learning about the genocide the genocides plural that America has participated in, and now you're seeing one in real life. You're seeing what your parents and grandparents told you about and warned you about, and the horror stories that you were told at bedtime. Like these are the monsters that you have been warned about your whole life. And I can totally understand just not being able to drag yourself to the point where you're going to continue to vote for that, even if you know that it is going to be better for a lot of other people. I get that. For literally everybody else,
I don't even give them that exception. Forrest, I'm gonna pop in just a little bit. My thing is that is still selfish voting. Even if a person says I'm Palestinian, and while I feel for them, and of the people as I line up to excoriate them, they're going to be at the very end. The sort of thing of what matters most is my feelings according to my personal situation and my family is literally the Republican reasons why they're voting, because they have a feeling about what's going on for them and their family, what they want to see preserved of their culture and their religion. And while, again, I'm not going to excoriate them as strongly, and I do totally understand, I'm not going to ask a person who literally has lost a person, like a close family member that they're still grieving, I'll let them be, they're still going to be less of a problem to me than the people who just did not show up to vote at all, as will be a huge group of people. But if that person asked me directly, do you think I made the wrong choice by not voting even with that whole situation? I'm still going to say, yes, I do.
Oh, no, certainly I would still rather that they continue to vote for Harris. I'm saying that, I don't think I get where you're coming from, but I don't think it's a fair comparison to say that it's the same kind of Republican logic, because the Republican logic is we might not be as in control anymore. The white Christian majority might not. And it's this fear mongering shit of they're going to take your guns away and they're going to make all your kids trans and all these things. Whereas in this other case, they're literally watching their actual city actually burning.
I understand. I'm saying it's still, I'm still saying that is, if that still means you're taking a singular issue and applying selfish reasoning to it, not unjustified selfish reasoning. Selfishness is often justified. I totally understand that.
It's not.
I totally get that. Yeah. And I'm still saying it's wrong to abstain or to not vote. And again, if they're, this is a person with Palestinian connections, this could even be a person I love, and I'm not going to stop loving them. Or anything like that. And they're going to still be less than the whatever 40% of people who just didn't vote at all. Even less than than the person who didn't vote, who was a Republican in Alaska. I will still say you were wrong to not go out and vote for Harris more strongly, even though there was no chance Alaska was going to go blue, then I will say it to those people. But to me, it is still there. You can't one issue vote. And at the end of the day, you still have to consider, yes, obviously that is all horrible, but isn't the number of future Palestinians also important first? And second, aren't the other people, the genocides which will happen here at home, like to your trans brothers, sisters, siblings, to your queer friends and family, and to, by the way, brown people in this country, aren't the future genocides still important?
Right. Let me rephrase, because maybe I think I got lost in the weeds here. I'm not saying that I'm telling them that they're doing the right thing. I'm saying I can't judge them for being so afraid they make that decision and trying to protect their family in any way they know how, even if it isn't something that is as analytical as what you or I would come from. And that's not to say that they're just making this stupid emotional decision. Sure. That's to say that you and I are approaching this from a position of extreme privilege. It really fundamentally, you maybe as a bi person a little bit, but on the whole, you and I are cishet white dudes, and I'm not. Well, I'm saying in general terms, from what I talk to you in general, more often than not, you and I have the least to lose here. And so for us, a Trump presidency really wouldn't change much more than our taxes. And so I can understand how someone who is on this other spectrum of they're actually experiencing this right now would make a much more fear-based gut reaction. And that while I disagree with that still fundamentally, and I agree with everything you're saying, I still think that that's a problem because they're putting all these other people at risk. The same issue that I would have with anybody else.
Again, my only judgment was if I'm asked if they are doing the right thing, or if put up and they said something like it's okay. If somebody publicly says it's okay in that scenario to abstain, I'm going to publicly disagree. I don't agree that that the only thing that will change is our taxes. I live in Texas. I think you're public about where you live, right? In the state in what state you live?
Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Oklahoma.
I not only do I live in Texas, but I am an anti-religious activist who employs trans people. And I think Donald Trump actually does want to come for First Amendment kinds of things.
Yeah, all three of us are the enemy within at this point.
Right.
We're all
literally the enemy within.
Right. That kind of thing notwithstanding, I'm just talking about
violence too. I think is going to be huge.
For sure. I think about like the last time I was on because I wanted, we had that guy call in and he was like, well, we survived the last Trump president. We can do it again. And like, I was like practically screaming at this point because I was like, you fucking survived because you're a fucking white dude in America. So yeah, you survived.
Andrew also addressed this. Andrew Seidel, he also addressed this. And the reason why it was easier to survive was because they didn't have a plan and the Republicans didn't know they could rally around them. It's completely different this time.
Right.
Now they have
it
Project
is very
2025.
Different Project 2025.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's different. I'm just saying that is still, because that hasn't happened. And while I will talk about that in a minute, that is still speculative in the future. I'm talking about just in terms of like what we know has already happened. Very little difference for somebody like you or me, massive, major difference for a woman or a person of color. And so like that, or a queer person. And so like for that reason, like that's what I would be talking about. If anybody else was to say that they're voting third party or that they're going to stay in voting their approach or whatever like that, I would then seriously ask them, okay, please explain to me, how does a Trump presidency help the other marginalized communities that you've been spending all this time rallying for? How is it not completely performative for you to sit here and say, I'm going to allow these people to be more hurt so that I can say, well, at least I didn't participate in some other people being hurt. Like that's simply not acceptable.
Yeah.
And while I hate to sound like a fucking liberal and say, well, this is the system, we got to work within the system. Like I said, 364 days and 3 years out of these cycles, it is absolutely your responsibility to be screaming and shouting from the rooftops and banging on the windows and rattling the rafters and doing all these things to say, hey, we need to fucking change the way we do this stupid election system. It is insane. It's detrimental. It's destructive. It's pointless. It's stupid. It sucks. Meanwhile, on this particular election day, you now need to fucking say, okay, I have two options. I can either continue at like worst case scenario, the status quo, or I can make things exponentially worse for millions of people, but at least I get to say I voted my conscience.
With fascism,
it's just not appropriate.
We do got to wrap. So final 30 seconds there. Tell people what they should do with what they've heard after our conversation.
Think about it critically. And if you think there's something wrong with what we said, fucking tell us, because like we're not right about everything. However, I think on this issue in particular, it is the trolley problem in real life. And yes, the trolley problem does have a solution. It's make sure less people die. So you now have this issue. Do you continue to exist in the system which allows for genocide, or you to continue to exist in a system that allows for genocide and makes the genocide worse and also oppresses millions more people and also leads to further genocide? Like, what do? You continue with where you're at and you try to make it better.
Yep. And accelerationism doesn't fucking work, you idiots. It literally creates
that's
vacuums.
What I mean by cosplaying revolutionaries. That's what I mean.
The vacuums are almost always filled by fascists. The only time it isn't is like a Hitler situation where, yes, after Hitler it got better. And if you are saying, okay, then that's what I'm doing. I'm voting for Trump to vote for Hitler to eventually get the post-Hitler. That means you're voting for a fucking Holocaust because that's what it took, you morons. A Holocaust to come,
Seriously.
Not the genocide so far, the new one, you assholes. Anyway, thank you, Forrest.
That's what I mean by cosplaying revolutionary. All these privileged ass white dudes who are like, I'm just going to help destroy the government and burn it all down, and then I'll make it. I've said shit like burn it all down, and I mean it contextually. But these people actually mean it, like just throw everything away because you know it'll be fine for me, and then we'll just do whatever we want after I've already got sacrificed all these millions of people. It's fucking privileged bullshit.
Yep. Well, thank you, Forrest.
Agreed.
You're the best.
Thank you, Jimmy and Eve. I appreciate you both. I'm going to go back to the convention now where I'm supposed to be meeting people.
We love you, our special.
Thank you.
Our special
Thanks
guy.
for taking
we love
time to talk to us.
See you, buddy.
See you guys later. Bye.
Bye, Forrest.
That's Forrest Valkai, our special boy.
I love him. I think it was AOC recently was saying, who would you rather argue with about these issues? Like just from a pragmatic standpoint, one person is not even going to hear you or want you to have a voice. And the other gives an option for growth. There's no room for growth with a fascist dictator. It's just not going to happen. So,
and the Overton window, for people who don't know, that's the window basically of politically what's acceptable, what is considered mainstream. The Overton window is going our gosh dang direction. Yes, it opened up to the right as well, but now leftist and socialist. I was a part of the anti-socialist movement back in the day as a kid, obviously, but I was a Fox News teenager. Like, yeah, socialism's the end of this country. Socialism was a bad word that if you just assigned, they called Obama a socialist as a bad word. Now, if people could actually convince me Harris was a socialist, I wouldn't just be voting for her out of a need to stop Trump.
Right.
I'd be stoked. Like, it's a different world we live in. Keep building on that progress. Eve, why don't you get the final thoughts as the outro plays? And you can just go the whole 3 minutes. I'm just kidding. You don't have to do that.
I loved hearing the hopeful stuff. Unfortunately, it didn't convince me. I still feel really on edge about this. I feel a lot of anxiety. So if you're feeling the same thing, you're not alone. And the answer is to do what Andrew said and to put your head down, to dig in, and to go out there and vote and to have difficult conversations, and to post the thing you're, maybe scared to post. Go for it. I mean, we have a lot to lose. We have so much to lose. So I think let's be driven by our anxiety instead of make it cripple us. That would be my final thoughts.
No consequence of the post that you're going to make will be worse than the consequences of a Trump presidency. Period.
Yeah.
Period. That's just how it is. There won't be an after show because this was a special episode and it's long. And when we are recording this, we need to get to bed. But we'll do a quick, tiny version. Of the two of us, which one of us is more petty? I encourage pettiness in this very show. Go and cancel someone's vote you hate. But do you think you're more petty than I am?
I think maybe you're petty more often than I am, but when I am petty, it's like, oh, you don't like that? I think when I am petty, it is like I will take it. Well, I think you like little tiny petty things. You know what I mean?
I think I find pettiness kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah, you're like a little sassier.
Listen, I don't like that you said that. I'm going to get my revenge. I'm not petty, but I will end you for that.
I think it takes a lot for me to become petty, but when I am, it's true pettiness. Yeah.
Which of us thinks loving pizza is a personality trait?
I do think loving pizza is a personality trait.
Me too. And I haven't been able to have pizza since like March or April or something crazy. Maybe May. And I miss it so much. Every day I think about it. I dream about pizza.
I just ate pizza 3 times in a row because we have leftovers and I'm sick of it. So sorry.
I'm going to end you for that too. I'm not petty. Which of us plays devil's advocate more often?
I don't know that either of us really do that.
That's not. I only advocate for the positions I don't do a lot of like, well, let's hear it from there. I'm like, no, here's the correct answer, and I will die on this hill.
I mean, I'm all for like steel manning something, but not really devil's advocate.
Which of us would be more likely to ask to speak to the manager? Probably me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'll speak to a manager. If it's
righteous, I'll make a fuss.
I was about to say, I'll speak to a manager.
Who's most likely to Photoshop their photos before posting them?
Not me.
You don't edit?
Is it you? No.
I edit some.
Do you think I know how to do that?
But I think filters and automatic things, I think, count.
Sure, sometimes. But I don't, like, if I post on Instagram, I don't put a filter on it. I mean, unless I'm doing, like, a rainbow, like, obvious, like, you know. But
I don't do much. You'll see my rosacea and most things. Like, I might, really, I just focus on, I know how to light, so I just make sure the light's good.
Yeah, I truly don't. I don't even use filters, really, so.
Which one of us is more likely to spend $50 on iPhone games?
Not me.
I could see myself doing it for the right games. Sorry that this was the show, everybody. Go vote, because we're fucked. Goodbye.
Please.